Hey Ultra family, Justin Too here, your host today of the Ultra Cycling Show. Thanks for joining us for another sprint round race report. This time it's with Heather Poskevich, who placed an incredible second overall and first in the women's category in a time of 3 days, 2 hours and 31 minutes at the race across the West. It was an extremely challenging race this year with record high temperatures throughout the 930-mile course, or 1,500 kilometers. It climbs almost 50,000 feet or 15,000 meters. And Heather was racing until the very end and was just 26 minutes shy of the overall victory and one of only a handful of finishers. Let's roll. Thanks for joining me on the show today, and well done, Heather. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Well, it's really great to have you on the show. I can't believe it was just a week ago that you were racing through 115, 120 degree heat, even hotter off the road, and you're looking pretty good, I would say.
Better.
Well, it's great to have you on the show today. Let's get started with this sprint round race report. It's a fun series of interesting questions where you'll be challenged to answer each within a set time limit, ranging from 15 seconds to 60 seconds. But don't worry, you won't be disqualified for going over time. So let's get rolling with your very first question. Who are you in a nutshell? Tell us your name, your age, location, and occupation.
So I'm Heather Poskevich. I'm 41 years old. I'm from Polk City, Iowa, and I'm an ER physician by day, avid cyclist by night.
Wow, that is so cool. So you're kept pretty busy even outside of cycling. Very cool. Describe the event with just one word for us.
Challenging.
And that is the understatement of the year. Why did you choose this event?
Lots of reasons, but I thought it was a natural progression in length from the Hoodoo 500, which was my previous crude event. I also wanted to be challenged by the desert. Also, it's the beginning of the Ram course, so if I were going to be entertaining doing that, this was a nice way to start taking a look at it.
Wow, that's so awesome. So we'll look forward to seeing you. How did you feel on a scale of 1 to 10?
7, as far as
Wow.
good. I mean, I was prepped, trained. Certainly were some hardships there that kind of knocked the fluff off and made me feel less stellar at times. But overall, I felt like I was doing what I had set out to do.
Well, that's fantastic. A 7 is really good.
Really?
What was your goal versus your result?
Yeah, that was rough. So, I mean, the goals were obviously to finish. That was primary goal. Second was to finish it as quickly as possible. From mapping out with multiple models, pretty aggressive as far as stop time. We were looking maybe 62 hours-ish, give or take some, by several hours, and that became much more challenging this year, obviously.
Extremely difficult course this year, for sure. All right, how much time did you spend off the saddle?
Only about 10%. The rest was, on.
Wow, that's awesome. A long time to be on the bike. Describe the course for us.
Yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, starting in Oceanside, it's kind of pleasant and, one little fun, punchy climb, and then you start making the climb up to the glass elevator. Temps are starting to climb in that area. We were lucky this year. The glass elevator was actually quite kind to us. I thought it wasn't very windy. I had trialed it a couple days prior. I had some interesting experiences then. Hit the desert, which was really, really hot. I was really happy for night. Cooled off a little bit. The next day, we just kept moving, fought through the heat again. Kind of worked on our cooling strategies, which was kind of an evolving process. I did suffer from not heat exhaustion, but it definitely took a much bigger toll on physical performance than anticipated. A lot of climbing through the night, some more desert, a little bit more climbing, and then the last push into Durango for the finish. And that was when the race got really fun.
Wow. Doesn't sound too difficult when you explain it in 60 seconds. What time did you start?
Right.
It's a staggered start and everyone starts at a different time.
Yep, 1:06 p.m.
Nice. All right. You'll have to get that tattooed or something.
Maybe.
Or I guess your race number is better.
I think I'll like that better.
All right. What was your average power and your max power? Do you know?
So I don't have a good answer for you in average power. It was low. I mean, these events, your power decays. Max power is like 440, 450. And that obviously would have been one brief time, I think, in the first segment.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds pretty awesome. Well done. How about your average and max speed?
Same, trying to give you a good average. I actually haven't done a lot of crunching on the data at this point. It looks like maybe around 16 miles per hour. That's including stops. It might be a little bit less than that with the stops. Max was 51.2 miles per hour, which is insane for me.
Nice. Wow, yeah. You're really enjoying those descents.
That had to be brief. I almost questioned if there was an error there, but that's what I've got off the Garmin data so far.
Nice. Okay. So what was your average and max cadence? Do you know?
Yeah, I was looking at that. So average cadence was probably 75 to 80, 75 when I'm climbing, 80 when I'm out on the flats. Max, I probably was in maybe the low hundreds at some point if I was just spinning out a bit.
Interesting stats. Yeah, 75 to 80. That's pretty high. So that's great. How about your heart rate? Do you track that? Do you know what your average and max were there?
Yeah, so looking at the data again, I don't have all the pieces in one big race for you to give you an overall average. It looks like probably settled in around 120s, which is low for me. But that's just an element of decay over time for these events. My max was 175, which is right about at my threshold.
Awesome. Great. Some really cool numbers. How about calories? How many did you burn? How many did you eat?
Calories burned, rough estimate looks like about 21,000.
Wow.
As far as how much I ate, I haven't gone through our nutrition logs yet. I would imagine they were probably giving me about 150 calories an hour or so, 250 when we were higher earlier in the race.
Well, enough calories to get second place overall, so it worked for you. Okay, funny question. How many toilet breaks did you take?
That I don't know. I'd probably say maybe 4 or 5 a day on average. Not a lot. Our crew changes were 12 hours, so I probably would have maximized those stops and maybe 2 or 3 more outside of that each day.
Great. Sounds like you had it dialed in. How many sleep breaks did you end up taking?
Our sleep is an area where I feel like maybe I could have done some improvements. We were planning for 2 breaks. I ended up with 3 that were not in the places we wanted because my fatigue just got so high. So I had a 30-minute, a 45-minute, and another 30-minute, and then some like brief rests in the car, and that was it.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty extreme. How did your speed power profile look like throughout the event?
Well, it was definitely more shocking than what I had anticipated. And again, I think this was just a product of the heat. My power, I was hoping to hit, kind of an IF of, I don't know, 0.6668. And I was already under that, like 0.58 hours into the race. I mean, and it just was never going to come up above that with the heat.
Yeah,
just went down
that was
from there.
really difficult. Okay, which bicycles did you end up using?
I have 2. The first one is a Trek Amanda that it's kind of my Franken bike. It's got a race wheel set up with aero bars. And the second bike is a Diamond, which is a local bike company here by TJ Tollickson, who's a professional triathlete who went out on his own. It's a marquee frame and it's a beam bike. So a little bit different geometry. It's fast.
Awesome. That's cool. All right, what gearing did you use on them?
For the road bike, it's an 1132. And then for the Diamond for the time trial, it's 1128.
Cool. Sounds like you got it dialed in. What size tire and tire pressure were you using?
So that again was a product of doing some data crunching. My coach, Greg Grand George, he does a lot of data engineering to assist with these races. So the both bikes were 25 millimeter tires. The
Hmm.
Continental 5000s. I don't have the ability to do tubeless on the road bike. The pressure there was probably in the 80s. We dropped it a little to high 70s. And then the time trial bike, same 25 millimeter Continental 5000s tubeless. Pressures were high 70s.
That's a nice setup. Definitely working for you, and you've got things dialed in. All right, how many sets of clothing did you use?
We were trying to be real careful with groin care, so we changed short bottoms about every 6 hours. Specifically, I had some bibs that I wanted with the time trial bike, just with a little bit of a
Hmm.
thinner chamois for the body positioning. And then the tops we kind of switched to make things match, but less often. So every
Cool.
6 hours.
Sounds like a good cadence there for you. What was your overall race strategy?
Hmm. That one's a hard one to answer. I mean, obviously, the overall strategy was to finish, to be, cautious through the areas that I knew I was going to struggle, which was going to be heat in the desert, be real careful with cooling. We actually did some heat strategy training before I left. A
Hmm.
lot of cooling strategy on the course. I love to climb, so try to maximize, what I feel is a strength for me and climb aggressively. I'm a cautious descender, so kind of cautious with that, and then just really try and be as efficient as possible and stay on the bike.
Well, it was a winning strategy for sure. How about food? What did you eat? Snacks, food, hydration?
I am a non-traditional racer. I would say most of my ultra background is actually unsupported racing, and in that
Hmm.
circumstance, you eat what's available to you. So I can be a bit of a garbage can and eat burritos and pizza, and I'll keep rolling because that's what you find.
Nice.
So we did do Carbo Pro through, especially through the desert on the time trial bike when it was really hot. It's just hard to eat. You don't want to, so trying to get calories
Hmm.
in any way that you can. But then supplemented with like little deli sandwiches, peanut butter jelly, grapes, fruit, really anything I could tolerate.
Sounds
So
good.
less liquid than a lot of people, from what I hear. But
Yeah, for sure. Everyone has a different strategy. Who was your support crew?
I did. We actually had a large crew. I had 8 crew members, 3 cars, kind of a Ram light. And so my crew chief was Greg Grand George. He's a friend of mine and also my coach. Then we had Jill Marks. She's a seasoned Ram Raw crew member. Bill Becker, Rob Jemison, Deanne Herr, Rose Willie, um, Joel Herr, and Mike Healy were my crew members. So 3 of them are family members. The others are friends and fellow cyclists with me.
Wow, that's an all-star team. Can't wait to see them in the Race Across
It
America.
was. It's a
All right,
possibility.
which was the most difficult segment for you?
Oh, there were 2 tough segments. Trying to get to Kayenta was just really, really tough because I was so fatigued. Also, I
Hmm.
mean, just going through the desert with those high temperatures, that was really challenging. I'd say those were probably the 2 big ones. The 2 overnights were tough. Coming into Mexican Hat and Monument Valley, I was
Hmm.
hours off schedule by that rate. Struggled a lot with fatigue through the night in that area.
Wow, yeah, what a journey. All right, how about the most boring segment?
Um, I don't know. I think probably trying to get to Kayenta. I like after Tuba City, that area through there for what I just wasn't feeling it. And then it started to rain in the desert of all
Oh, wow.
things. And then we had a dust storm. So at that point, the conditions were so poor. My crew actually had me take a quick nap. And they stood outside while the wind was like trying to blow my bike and my helmet and all my gear away. There's actually a video on my
Wow,
Instagram and Facebook of them cowering outside.
that's
That section
fascinating.
was
Only seen in RAM and ultra cycling. All right, most enjoyable segment for you.
um okay, so a couple fun segments. I mean, again, I love to climb. I'm from Montana originally. I love anything mountains. So I really enjoyed the climb going up to Jerome. What is that, Mingus Mountain? I also
Hmm.
enjoyed the climbing overnight the second night. And then headed into Flagstaff, I kind of got a second wind through there. We were making some real nice progress, and it's just very kind of reminiscent of Montana. And then the race
Hmm.
finished the last probably 50 miles or so. We were racing hard as we could. And that was a hoot.
Yeah, amazing that you were racing all the way to the end. And you were just about, what, 30 minutes from the first place?
I know. Yeah, 26
Wow,
minutes.
that's amazing. Great
And
job.
BJ's great. We rode right next to each other and heckled each other, and his crew was cheering me and my crew was cheering him, and just great sportsmanship. It was a lot of fun.
That's so cool. Love that. All right, what kept you
Absolutely.
motivated in such a difficult year?
Um, I mean, I expected this. I expected it was going to be hard. I knew the heat of the desert was going to probably be my biggest challenge just because I've not really performed in that kind of environment, and especially for that many hours. And just a desire to finish. I mean, this is ultra cycling at its finest. How bad do you want it?
Wow.
You got to dial it back a little bit if you're not doing well, and just kind of understand things are going to come around. And I mean,
Mm,
just keeping my head in the game and my eye on the prize, which was finishing and passing as many people along the way as I could.
nice. Well, that's a winner's mindset for sure. That's awesome. Any unexpected situations?
Well, I mean, again, you saw the heat advisory that kind of came in the last week before the event, so I knew I was going to face heat. I didn't know quite how bad it was going to be. I got to
Mm,
the point where even Raw Ram headquarters allowed us to do direct follow in areas they wouldn't traditionally allow, just because they didn't want us separated from our car. There were times like
mm,
going up the Yarnell climb. That Ram media met me there, and I had been separated from my crew for a good half hour, and I was just incinerating. My arm coolers were warm, and now they're like
sheesh.
wool sleeves because they're not wet anymore. Like that became very
Oh man.
unnerving, and I mean it's expected, but just unexpected how challenging it really was going to be. And it was also very much unexpected to see how fast my power and performance dropped. It was
Mm,
very early in the race, and that was a little bit sobering up front.
yeah, I can imagine. Well, well done. All right, what lessons did you
Mm-hmm.
learn? Anything that you would change for the next time around?
Um, I mean, again, it reaffirmed for me that I can do the distance. I still groin care for
Mm,
some is something for me that I'm always kind of trying to work on. I had some early issues that I would not have pushed through so hard until the bitter end of the race, and then it was like, well, what does it
mm.
matter? Like, my hind end will recover later. Like I'm racing these people, I want to beat them.
Yeah.
Um, Also, for me, I think I learned a little bit more about my sleep needs personally. I maybe would have done a couple bigger sleeps. But again, the other side of the coin is had we done those bigger sleeps, would I have been rested or would I have been right where I was? Because I definitely
Mm,
battled with some pretty extreme fatigue that negatively impacted my performance. And I don't know, I guess need more experience to determine what will work best for me, I suppose.
for sure. Yeah, the experience is key. It sounds like you've got a lot of that now and should be able to do Ram quite successfully if you make that attempt.
That sounds like a plan.
All right, how long did it take you to recover? I mean, maybe you're still recovering. Are there any injuries that you have?
I had one little rub spot on the groin area that's still working itself out. That's fine. Obviously, like just overall fatigue. I'm still tired. I feel like I could sleep a week every time I go to bed. And I'd say, I've been out riding like half hour, 45-minute rides, but power overall is still down. Being able to hold power, even just
Mm,
doing light weights and stuff, it's kind of down, but that's okay. That's expected. Just kind of letting the body do its thing. We'll get back to where we need to be. And I'm not in a rush. I don't have any big agenda coming up in the next little bit here. So enjoy
well,
family, time off the
for
bike.
sure. Glad the champion in the women's category can enjoy some rest and a break.
Absolutely.
All right, any tips that you have for others who are interested in participating in this event?
Oh, that's a tough one. I guess it depends on who your audience is. I think, I'm hoping that most people that are contemplating an event of that nature have already done some events. I mean, there's no pre-qualifier for Raw, which is surprising
Mm,
in its own right, given how long the race is. But I would say if you're going to try and tackle an event like that, I would start with something shorter and have a good
mm,
understanding of how you can perform and try and do some early, like the Hoodoo 500 was a great introductory race for me as far as duration. There's others that are shorter even than that. So test the waters and lots of seat time. You got to really train up for this thing.
yeah, that's some great tips. Thank you for sharing those with us. Okay, what's next on your calendar? Any upcoming events?
I don't really have an agenda right now. That's what I'm working on this next month to determine what interests me next. I've had some interest now that I finally secured a time trial bike to maybe do some 12 or 24-hour time trials.
Nice.
Certainly RAM is kind of lurking out there. We have some friends that we've talked about maybe a team attempt at RAM. So that might be on the docket, but I'm not sure yet.
Sounds awesome. Can't wait to follow along. Anything else that you'd like to share?
Oh, I well, certainly I'm still kind of a baby on the circuit here, so I appreciate the mentorship from all the other racers that are out there. I've had lots of people give advice, and so I really appreciate the sportsmanship and just family environment that this ultra cycling community has. That means a lot to all of us, especially the new ones coming up. I don't know what else to say. I guess thanks to everybody for supporting us and helping keep this sport fun and make it what it is.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I love about the sport also. Definitely an ultra cycling family. And it's been such a pleasure having you on the show. Thanks for sharing your experiences with us. I can't wait to have you back on the show for your upcoming adventures. Tailwinds for all of those, Heather. Until next episode, keep spinning ultra.